So Ry and I wanted to talk about an issue regarding water. So there's a long simmering sort of battle going on between the Metropolitan Water District and the San Diego County Water Authority. So let's do a quick sort of background. Each water district in San Diego County, like the city of San Diego, they're all these historical constructs of people getting together to get water, right? And they all got together and formed the County Water Authority, which buys its bulk water mostly from the Metropolitan Water District, right? And so what the local districts are to the Water Authority is to the Metropolitan Water District. This giant Los Angeles-based agency, big tower right outside the train station, pretty cool. And so the battle, though, between the Water Authority, the County Water Authority of San Diego, and the Metropolitan Water District has been going on for a while. And let me also draw this distinction. So in 2003, when I was a cub reporter in San Diego, one of my first tasks was to report on the Quantification Settlement Agreement, the QSA. And this was this big deal between the four major water districts in Southern California about water. In the highlight of it was they basically saying that the Colorado River, we were going to decide once and for all how much water that was going to bring us, and then we were going to divvy it up. And in that sort of divvying up process, San Diego made a deal with the Imperial Irrigation District about taking some of their water that was left over from this deal. Some of their farms would go fallow, one of my favorite words, and we would get that water. Now, we don't actually own pipes that would send us that water. And that brings us up to today, right? One of the biggest battles and legal fights we have with the Metropolitan Water District is what?
So they own the pipes. They own the Colorado River Aqueduct and then some pipes that come off of it and bring water from the Colorado River down here to San Diego. And we want to use that aqueduct and those pipes to bring water that we purchased separately from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California and get water here. But we can't. And so
you mean to get water from the Imperial Irrigation District?
Yes,
right.
To here.
Right.
And we can't do that without Metropolitan and their system, unless we want to build our own system over the mountains. We'd be building it through the ends of Borrego, basically.
Right.
And we don't.
Has that ever been discussed?
It has. Some form of a pipeline has been discussed, and it's probably somewhere on some dusty shelf. But that's not going to happen right now.
Right.
And so we've been talking to Metropolitan. We talked to Metropolitan. We said, hey, we want to get this water here. What can we work out? We couldn't work out a deal. They wanted to charge us one price. We wanted another price. Yada, yada, yada. We're still in court.
So that's called a wheeling price?
It's a wheeling rate. And the negotiating problem is Metropolitan has two sources of water, which mean that we have two sources of water because we get most of our water from them. They get water from Northern California through something called the State Water Project, which is a 600-mile-long series of canals and pipelines that bring Sierra Mountain snowmelt here, and then the Colorado River Aqueduct. And one costs more to operate than the other. The State Water Project that brings the Northern California water here costs a lot more to operate. And when we wanted to use Metropolitan's system, the Colorado River system, they wanted to charge us the combined costs of operating the system. And we said, no, we just want to pay for the cheap part of it, the Colorado River part of it. Don't try and charge us for this Northern California part.
All right, hold up for just a sec. We pay the combined rate for the most of the water we get from Metropolitan Water District.
Yeah, we do.
What they're saying is that for this deal we worked out with the farmers at Imperial Irrigation District, that water, since it's coming from the Colorado River, should just come to us for the price that the Metropolitan Water District has to do to get that water from the Colorado River.
Which is way cheaper.
Okay.
It's easier.
So that's the heart of the fight. Now, take us through how the fight's gone. When first court said, you are right, San Diego County.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. You have won a big prize.
Yeah. Technically, the judgment was $200 million in San Diego's favor, but since there's several cases that are going to apply for the next several decades, it was basically a $7 billion win for San Diego, and we were very excited. The Water Authority was very excited. And then, of course, Metropolitan appealed.
And that appellate court ruling came back like recently.
June 21st.
Okay. And that said, nope. In fact, you've won on a bunch of points, but not that big one.
Not the big one. So we won maybe $1 billion, but we lost $6 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And the Water Authority, frankly, tried to spin it as a win. And when you lose $6 billion in a day, I don't consider that a win. And then they appealed it to the state Supreme Court, which they're hoping will hand them a win on the big chunk of change. And that's sort of where we are.
Let's draw one other angle out. So there's that legal battle, but there's also a PR battle occurring. Now, what are the ins? So that the water authorities sending letters, doing surveys, all kinds of things to drive up public pressure on the Metropolitan Water District for what?
There has been years, about a quarter century of back and forth. The Metropolitan was ill-prepared for a drought in the early 1990s, and San Diego felt like it got the bad end of the deal, that it was going to face too many water cutbacks, a disproportionate number of water cutbacks compared to other people in Southern California. And since then, it's gone out and tried to buy a bunch of what it considers reliable water, this new desalination plant in Carlsbad, this senior right to the Colorado River water that Imperial Irrigation District has. And as part of that package, we've sort of, both agencies have engaged in different kinds of underhandedness and hanky-panky over the decades. The latest wave is pretty fairly coming from the Water Authority. They've had...
From San Diego.
From San Diego. They have PR consultants who are waging a sort of war against Metropolitan, saying, you've been spending too much money, you're reckless, you're not good at your jobs, we should have the state come in and take you over. They paid for a poll asking people, if we tell you all these terrible things about Metropolitan, will you think it's a terrible agency? Lo and behold, people thought that. And that's sort of where we are now. There's a court battle and a PR battle.
And that PR battle played out in the Union Tribune recently with various op-eds, one of which came from Randy Rivard. He's the chairman of the Metropolitan Water District. Again, they have these big boards that represent different areas of Southern California, and then they hire staff underneath them. And so Randy Rivard made the point in the Union Tribune that this is all a big waste, that San Diego is wasting too much money on this court case, and we're never going to win enough back to justify that. So we decided to call him. Here he is. All right, we are joined on the line by Randy Rivard. He is the chairman of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you.
So, Ry, let's start. You take this away. This is your baby.
Yeah, I mean, we've, anybody who's sort of in the water world has about a weekly encounter with the feud between the San Diego County Water Authority and the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. But, the public only sees this every now and again. In the UT, it kind of spilled out this week, and you wrote, quote, it seems the Water Authority is not leveling with its ratepayers about just how unsuccessful and needless this fighting has been. How do you figure that?
Well, there were a number of issues that were involved with the litigation. The appellate court ruled on the majority of those in favor of San Diego, and yet the one issue that was most important to Metropolitan, the court ruled in favor of Metropolitan. So we're very pleased by that. I mean, if you look at a financial analysis, the trial court had awarded San Diego a pretty good chunk of money, and about 80% of that has been reversed so that Metropolitan won't be paying. So, we're pleased that the biggest part was seen by the appellate court the way that we see it. The other issues that San Diego prevailed on, we've decided not to appeal because we think they're of less consequence at this point in time, and we're ready to move forward.
Yeah, I sense the sort of frustration, like this is all just the lawyers fighting now. The lawyers are the only ones making money on this. At one point, you sort of even suggested that there's probably going to be more money spent on lawyers than on that'll actually change hands as a result of this this case.
Right. Well, at this point, we're waiting to see if the state Supreme Court will take up the case. If it stands as is, then it looks very clear that San Diego will have spent more money litigating than what they've accomplished with judgments as far as the monetary award. So that's how I see that.
I mean, they still expect that eventually they'll get about $1 billion out of this on the smaller stuff that you guys decided not to appeal about. Do you think that's a fair assessment of the value?
Well, I have a different interpretation. For example, one of the issues was preferential rights, which has to do with what your rights are as a member agency in the times of shortage. Those are less and less important because we come together as a board and we determine how we're going to handle a shortage. And so in the history of Metropolitan, the preferential rights has never been implemented. We think that there may be state law that supersedes that. I'm very confident in Met's ability to be reliable, and so I think the idea that preferential rights would ever be implemented is a very low risk, and the rest of the board sees it that way, and really don't think it's something that's worth fighting over at this point.
So there was a op-ed in the UT as well from local mayors who obviously had a different perspective and said that it was worth pursuing the litigation further. And they said that while MWD says no ratepayers win when larger water agencies spend years in courts, the reality is that under MWD's current rates, some agencies do win. In fact, all MWD's other customers benefit to San Diego's detriment when MWD adds the cost of its state water project supplies onto the cost of transporting our own independent water supplies. You have a response for that?
Sure. I mean, to me, that's sort of spinning what's going on here. You need to remember that this is not a transfer. This is an exchange. So San Diego is providing an amount of water from the Imperial Irrigation District from the Colorado River, and in exchange, they're getting an equal amount of Colorado River water and also state project water. So it's completely appropriate to have the transportation cost of the state water included. And what's actually happening here is that was an expensive transfer, and that's okay. San Diego made that decision in the name of reliability. Perfectly understandable, but to try to shift the cost of moving that water to the other member agencies is inappropriate. So I think they've kind of got that backwards in the way they presented it in their op-ed.
And there's, I think in your op-ed and some of other Metropolitan people's comments lately, there's a frustration that this has been going on for a very long time. I think San Diego probably has that same frustration, but what do you make of the regional fight as a whole? Because down in San Diego, I think a lot of people have this impression that there's a sort of big bad Los Angeles-based agency trying to screw us out of water. You're not from LA, I don't think. I think you're a farmer out in Riverside. What do you make of what San Diego's been doing to sort of the whole regional water picture?
You know, there's been an issue between San Diego and the rest of Metropolitan for a long time, and I don't think it's directly related to LA. I'm frustrated because we keep fighting this battle in the courts, and at this point, it's gotten to a level of San Diego coming out with a public relations campaign to discredit the other member agencies and some of the representatives. And I think making this personal is inappropriate. It's not a good way to spend ratepayer money. And as Metropolitan, we've decided to stick with the facts and stick with what the court says and let it play out. But it is extremely frustrating. When public agencies litigate each other, there's no way that the public wins. There has to be some way to figure this out. And I'll give you another example. The president or the chair of the Water Authority Board, Mark Muir, sent a letter to the Met Board saying, hey, let's talk. And one of our board officers, Steve Blois, from a Ventura County agency, traveled down to San Diego to address the Water Authority Board and said, I'm here, I'm ready to talk. And as I recall, nothing came of that except that at the next Met meeting when Director Blois was in L.A., Mr. Muir and some of his other folks from the authority were in Ventura talking about how inappropriate the things that were being done by Mr. Blois. So to me, I'm not sure how you get beyond that kind of behavior and how you really sit down and figure out what's best for the public. How do we resolve this and move forward?
But neither side is blameless. One of the things that Met lost on was this rate structure integrity clause, this clause that was basically said, if San Diego ever challenged the Metropolitan rates that San Diego is now challenging in court, Met would stop subsidizing local water supply projects. And you guys have, I think, hundreds of millions of dollars to do that,
Right.
which could have made my rates, everybody listening to this, rates a little bit lower. And Met said, you sue us, we won't give you any money for the stuff you want locally. The court said that was unconstitutional. It was denying people a right to petition the government. I always thought it was kind of vindictive. I mean, there's stuff on both sides, right?
Well, it sounds vindictive when you say that it was put in place so that San Diego couldn't sue. It was any member agency. Any member agency that wanted to challenge the rate structure wouldn't be eligible for local projects funds. I think that's a great program. My agency, Eastern Municipal Water District, has taken advantage of that, and we have relied more on local supplies with those investments, which means the imported water that Met has is available for other member agencies, including San Diego. So, I mean, San Diego could have signed up for the Carlsbad project and decided not to and decided to litigate. And so, but that's that's another one of those things that they prevailed on. And frankly, I'm okay with that. Let's move forward. You want to sue? You have the right to sue.
So one of the first things that comes up when somebody like you makes an argument that says, look, you're wasting too much money on this litigation, all these expensive attorneys, you're not going to come out of it with a profit or a win for ratepayers. Well, the first thing that comes as a response is, well, isn't this billions of dollars still in contention? Isn't there a chance that San Diegans, and I think San Diegans listening, would maybe hope for dramatic rate relief? Why is that not a reasonable concern to pursue?
Well, let me be clear. I didn't say that's what was going to happen. I said once the state Supreme Court decides whether or not to pick this up, then we'll have an idea of whether the investment has paid off. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm certainly not an attorney. And I agree that if someone told me that my water rates would go down if my agency prevailed on a lawsuit, I think that's great. But if you take the time to really look at what's going on, this is nothing but a shift of expenses for moving water to all the other member agencies. That's inappropriate. You go out and find yourself a water supply, you want Met to move it, then you need to pay the appropriate transportation costs, which is exactly what the appellate court has confirmed.
Well, Randy, let's. I think just to pull off that question that Ry asked was, about the long fight. What about the future? How does this fall into place? Is this just something we have to live with as Southern California sort of political and policy observers, that the Water Authority and the Met will be, at war for a long time? Or how does this shake out? Is there any fundamental reforms that you guys could pursue or that they could pursue?
That's a very good question. It's a question I ask all the time. I have engaged Mark Muir, also the gentleman before that, Mark Weston, who I knew from Aqua, and we've had good discussions, but we're unable to kind of move things forward. I'm very anxious to try to find some common ground and figure out how to do that. I have to say again that this public relations campaign is not helpful. It doesn't lead to sincere and honest dialogue.
When we're talking about some of they did a survey where they explored ideas that, the Met would be sort of perhaps taken over by the state. There was a few other things. What was the worst part of that public record or public relations campaign in you guys' mind?
Well, I think you probably hit on it. It's not much of a survey when you say, don't you think the state should take over the operations of this agency that's out of control? I talked to a number of people in San Diego who are involved with water districts, and they, without exception, say the last thing we want is the state coming in and telling us what to do. So that's difficult to understand the motive there. And again, when you start to make it personal, it really makes it hard, as I said, to sit down and have a discussion that really moves things forward. We'll try to get beyond that. I have a lot of friends in San Diego, and I'm always looking for ways to try to get the dialogue going.
Right. Randy Record, the chairman of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.